You're listening to Relatable with Stephanie Michelle, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Relatable. I am your host, Stephanie Michelle. I haven't done a personal shared monologue in a long time. There's been so much news to cover that I haven't thought it's important to talk about my own feelings and needs, but I'm going to do one today and share a little bit about me. And, for the first thing that kind of comes up for me is, like, for as long as I can remember, I've been a really sensitive individual. I take things very seriously and feel things very deeply. In my early adulthood, I was led to believe that this was a real problem. And so I learned how to condition myself to be very stoic and not show any emotion whatsoever, especially at work, because, crying women at work is not cool. At this point, I can turn that on and off. I'm able to access what benefits me the most in the day. So do I need to allow myself to deeply feel something, or do I just need to put on the everything's good mask and go about my day to just finish the stuff that I need to get done? For me...
You have a lot of feelings about that?
I have strong feelings about that. Sorry. I don't even know if you guys can hear, but my guest's phone is going off, which has never happened on the show. So as soon as she's going to find it, she's going to hit it. Yeah. All right. You should turn it off because it's going to happen. Okay, good, good. Okay, so sorry. It's all good. So this is a funny statement now after that. For me, everything's about optimization. I work towards optimized solutions in my work, my self-care, and my relationships, and my relationship with my phone. Just kidding. I can't be everything at all times, but there's some things that I will always make time for. My friends, my family, and of course, uplifting experiences. And in terms of uplifting experiences, I can think of nothing better than just laughing and laughter. So that little laughter break actually is energy charging sometimes. So laughter is energy giving, especially in tough times. It could be the exact thing that's needed to provide a distraction or on times when things feel like just completely out of control and there seems to be no solution. A shared laugh is even better. So if you can get in a situation where all people are laughing with you, it just provides hope and connection, and it reminds us that we're not alone in our thoughts and feelings. And it really gives us a break from the heaviness of, the heaviness that's associated just with being an adult or adulting. So laughter is a gift, and I consider my guest a gift as well today. So this is Beth Lapides.
Hello.
Hello. She is an author, a comedian, a producer, and an actor. She's best known for creating her long-running comedy show called UnCabaret. She appeared on
UnCabaret.
UnCabaret.
Not on Cabernet.
Well, that would be good, too. She's appeared on Sex and the City, Comedy Central, Politically Incorrect, NPR, The Today Show, and O Magazine. Her show is available on Amazon, Audible, and it's been live for almost every Sunday for over 25 years.
Correct.
Holy Jesus. I can't wait to hear about that. She's hosted everyone from Roseanne, Kathy Griffin, Margaret Chow, Bob Odenkirk, Pat Oswalt, Jeff Garland, and Sandra Bernhardt. She is also a creative coach, and her writing and performance workshops have helped launch or rekindle thousands of careers.
That's mostly true.
That's mostly true. Did you elaborate in your writing skills when you gave that to me? Well, welcome.
Welcome.
Before we get into just like talking about you and comedy and laughter, I always ask guests sitting in that chair if there's anything that they want to just clear out, put out there that's kind of pulling you as a distraction before we have our topical conversation.
Coffee. Where's the coffee?
Oh my
Where's
God.
the coffee?
Beth, the first thing, she wasn't like, hey, nice to see you. Hi. She's like, where's the damn coffee?
Aren't we doing radio?
Yeah. So, yes.
No.
Coffee is pulling your attention.
You know what? I drove over and, everything is on my mind. It's such a time, everything, love and death and the news of the day and who am I going to rebook? One of the Saturday Night somebody got a gig at Saturday Night Live who's on the show next week, and who am I going to replace them with, and the UnCab always, and what about this show, and what about the last show, and what about the 25th, and what about, and am I loving properly, and what about my friend who's dying, and it all just runs through.
Yeah.
It's just mostly questions, what about, and how could I be better, and what if I, and how come they, and questions, and love the question. That's all. But I'm here, right? But it's not distracting. I mean, I don't want to say there's nothing on my mind, but as I sit down to talk to you, it's not a distraction.
I like that. Well, you'll love that I close the show every day with relate with more curiosity. I love questions.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing, as we learn and grow and just deal with life, like if you're not questioning, you're not living, right?
You're not living at all.
Yeah.
It's funny because I have to say I do love answers also. And I feel like it's been a real part of kind of growing up recently to just really literally tell myself, love the question, and not be focused on getting the answer, that the question is the thing. And I think partly because we're living in these times of such vast uncertainty.
Yes.
I mean, there's on a cosmic level, we're going through the shift, and if you talk to the woo-woo crowd, it's like the shift and the consciousness and all that, and the new age of Aquarius, and other if you don't look at it from that perspective, it's just chaos. So and maybe who knows which camp is right. It's certainly more uplifting to feel like, shift. I'm part of that, and I like to think like one comforting thought is like, if you're here now, you volunteered for it. And on the worst days, it's like, hey, you volunteered for this. I'm like, right, I must have volunteered for it. That's why I'm here. That's what's going on. But to literally say, I love the mystery, I mean, because if you think of it as mystery rather than uncertainty, it has this sort of very romantic notion, and to say, I love the mystery, there's more God there, because God doesn't ever act. I mean, I'm just going to say God, you can fill in whatever word, you always have to say that. Whatever word, higher power, the great elf, whoever, the cosmic force, the jokester, the trickster,
the woman,
the lady, the goddess, whatever you want to call it. I do think in my own life, my own experience, so I say think, but I have lived that where God shows up in those beautiful moments of alignment and quote unquote coincidence and magic and symbols, it's always where there's mystery, uncertainty, unknown. That's where it really can reveal itself. So I don't know. I
love it. I 100% agree with that. I sometimes call it creativity too. I mean, I think if you've been through a process of creativity with a group of people, like the magic that just evolves because you're letting it in, you're letting everybody have some value, and it is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and, even to sit down and just write every single day, or to say, every single Sunday, what's it going to be? What's this show going to be? It's going to be different, and to sit down and sometimes when I sit down to write and I'm like very agitated, I realize it's because I feel like I should already know what I'm going to write. Now, there is a map. You want to have a map, but having a map is different than knowing what the trip's going to be. Yeah, GPS has some idea about how you're going to go, but that's not the trip. That's just some vague idea. So you do want a vague idea, but that's different than knowing how the writing's exactly going to go. And that, the same thing, with the show, it's one thing that compels me to keep going is this spiritual practice of every single week not knowing what the show is going to be, and every single week having to up my ability to go to really learn. I mean, I really feel like if I ever could learn this lesson, the show would be over. If I could ever learn the lesson, just really go with the flow about it. Just really, it's going to be what it's going to be. It's been good for 25 years. Probably it's going to be okay, but I still can get overwrought. But that's the difference. Boundaries create freedom. So I think we met at City Yoga. And
we did.
Anthony used to say that all the time. And boundaries create freedom. That really stuck more than any other thing of my yoga practice.
I 100% agree. I lay down foundation to have freedom to create like that. I don't have to worry about. Now I can do whatever here. So. Cool. All right, we're off to a good start. Let's go way back.
Let's go way back.
Way back. What was Beth like as a child? Like, what made you laugh? Like,
nothing made me laugh. I was so serious. As many comedians will tell you, very serious as children. Very, very. My main memory of childhood, I was hospitalized at 5, blood disease. kind of dire,
Yeah.
you know, and there was a lot of panic around it and uncertainty, you know, and pain. And I learned a ton. I mean, probably every life lesson was in that, including, you know, lie about pain. It's not going to hurt. 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 Oh, guess what? You know, really hurts. So pain, we're supposed to lie about that. Okay. So I do remember wanting to watch The Tonight Show with my parents. I remember crawling into bed and just being like, I need to see that.
Yeah.
Like comedians made me laugh.
Yeah.
I mean, I was drawn to these people who they somehow, that was their life.
Yeah.
But not so much that it stuck that I should do that. I mean, I had a whole, you know, I had an early career as an artist first. So,
What kind of art?
I was a performance artist, visual. I did writing and visual and performance art, and I toured as a performance artist around the world.
Well, so is there a pivotal moment that you started to go, yeah,
I mean, there was the shows were getting funnier, or maybe even a little too funny for performance art. I was specifically trying to be funny rather than accidentally being funny. And there was a moment I was living in New York, and I remember walking on the street thinking, you know, if I could do everything that I'm doing and it could be funny on purpose more, I could also be making people laugh, and that would be better. Like, that would be a better use of my lifetime if I could also be doing that. And then I remember also thinking, I was in my still early 20s, and I remember thinking, you know, life is crazy because you grow up, and as you get older, you finally get it, and when you really get it, you die. That's ridiculous. I mean, I was like, that's either so tragic or hilarious. And I was like, I don't think I can live with the idea that it's so tragic. And it really felt so true that I just made a really conscious decision at that point that I was going to try to see it as funny and build my life around that. And you know, the art world was also seeming a little overly serious, even though the comedy world, once I entered it, seemed a little unserious. You know, I did a little betwixt and between. Yeah, that has been my story a little bit.
Well, that's probably what keeps you curious, though. You're
a little. That's what kept. I mean, that was why UnCabaret was born, was because when I entered the comedy world, there was a lot that seemed old-fashioned about it and off. But I loved. I fell in love with the thing of it, you know, of the simplicity of a person on stage talking and making people laugh, or as I like to tell my students, giving laughter, not making people laugh. You know, you're not getting laughs, you're really giving it. And it is, you know, language is so important. I mean, if you're a talker and a writer, you have to believe in language. And you know, the story of UnCabaret was really partly, I was working in LA as a comedian, and I was still touring my one-person shows, but I was one night at the Comedy Store following Andrew Dice Clay. I don't know if you're in now. And he was getting a lot of laughs, and I just hated his material, and I hated his whole thing, and I hated the audience for laughing at him, and then I hated myself for laughing, for you know, I hated myself for hating and I'm not comfortable with hate. I'm not a natural hater. I'm not fueled by anger. I'm not never angry, but it doesn't, you know, especially in comedy, you see a lot of people who are like fueled by their anger. It's very helpful, but I've never been able to do that. And I just was just like, there's got to be a different way. I've got to find a different way because I don't want to be in this situation where, you know, that's the emotion that I'm plugging into. So there was that. And then I had a one-person show called Globomania, which was sort of built around the idea that the globe was now being used to sell cars. And, you know, it was like, you know, now the globe is just like the new boob. And I was getting ready to tour it, and I was doing a show at a small space called the Women's Building, and it was like a very arty crowd, and it was really, really going over like so hard. And I was like, I wish it was as funny as you thought it was, but maybe it is. But I'm just saying, you're laughing like crazy. When was the last time you laughed? And they're like, oh, we don't laugh. We're women, and we're artists, and we're lesbians, and if we go to comedy clubs, they make fun of us. And I said, you know what? I'm going to come back from my tour. I'm going to make you a show. It's going to be unhomophobic, unmisogynist, unxenophobic. It'll be the UnCabaret. And it was really born there for this audience. Yeah. There was an audience that was in need. And at the same time, I was looking for something different. And at the same time, you know, I always think when things happen, they usually happen. I mean, even like human life, there's a sperm and an egg. There's at least 2 reasons. Yeah. You know, and often there's a third reason, you know, the womb. There needs to be some sort of, you know, and the comedians, you know, where comedians were at that time was also in a very stuck, it was a very hard time in comedy because it was booming, and that was great. But the boom also meant that comedians were all trying to get their, Seinfeld was on, and everybody was trying to get their show. And so everybody was doing these tight 10s, and it was very ossified. It was very like, just do your tight 10 over and over and over again until somebody will give you your sitcom.
Tight 10 minutes, I'm assuming.
No, your tight 10. Yeah, your tight 10 minutes,
okay. All right.
And so, you know, there was a longing for a kind of freedom that hadn't existed. So UnCabaret was born out of that with an audience of me and comedians all looking. And I did it at the Women's Building, and then I moved it to Highways, and then blah, 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 and we landed. And then the journey began. You know, there was a beta phase, there was a soft launch, but we didn't know to call it.
Yeah, but, you know. But to paraphrase that story, I mean, what I'm pulling out of that, or what's coming up for me, is that you look at it as a gift. Like even in that situation, like these women didn't feel like anybody was doing comedy for them. No. You're like, I can do this. I can give you this gift. Like,
I'll give you this gift. Well, really, I didn't. I wish I could say that. So I could give you this gift. Yeah. In the moment, it was very just intuitive. I didn't have any highfalutin ideas. So it was just like, oh my God, need. Yeah. I saw a need, and I was like, oh, I can make this for you, and you're fun. And I mean, partly they were laughing. So who do you want to give things to? People who are laughing. It's like,
people that are hungry.
Yeah, hungry. Like, yeah. So they were, and I just saw. I think there wasn't any thought. There was no thought. It was not a thought-filled moment. It was very intuitive.
Why am I laughing about that? I mean, sometimes that's just it, though, right?
Yeah, that's the best.
Way too much.
Yeah.
They overthink. I'm guilty of that. I overthink it, and it's like it's those moments.
Me too.
And this is why I will call it God. It's like in those moments where it's like you're not really waiting or expecting or wanting something to come in. The best thought ever comes in. It's like, yes, that's the gift that I just got. But it wasn't really mine. It wasn't me sitting down and pushing for that.
Yeah, no, I feel it was very much an assignment. That would be the best way I can say it. You know, and I've had other things come to me through people asking me things or saying me things. It's like, oh, I see, it's an assignment. And, you know, I've tried to stop UnCabaret many times. Yeah. It's not been like, okay, well, this is my life's work and I'll do it for, you know, after the Women's Building closed, I stopped it. And then, I stopped it a few times. After Luna Park closed, we had done it there for 7 years. I thought, okay, it's done. 7-year run, plus what came before. It's a good amount. And then the HBO Workspace was like, please, 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 we want to develop it with you. I was like, no, because you're not open on Sundays. It has to be on Sundays. Why? I don't know. And then I was like, no, we'll open on Sunday. Well, we have to have like alcohol, Well, fine, we'll have wine. And it was like I just kept putting these so many things, you know. But and then I did take a little sabbatical about 8 or 9 years ago. I stopped, and now here, and then this incredible space became available, and they wanted to bring us in, and they made it also. I mean, every single time the universe has made it so I couldn't say no. When Luna Park wanted to do it, I was really looking for a place, but they booked it for 3 nights, and it ran for 7 years. Wow. So every single time it's been put in front of me in a way that isn't necessarily always my doing.
I gotcha. What makes you laugh, or what are you surprised by? Maybe is a better question. That when you laugh at something, you're like, I didn't know I'd like that. Does it ever surprise you?
Well, every laugh is a surprise. That's what makes you laugh is surprises. That's the thing that when the banana peel, the slip, the pie in the face, the falling down the it's a surprise. I mean, there's humorous things that are smart and interesting that don't make you laugh, and those are clever and that's fun. Yeah. But the thing that makes you laugh is the surprise. And vulnerability, emotion, stories make me laugh. I laugh most when somebody's telling me a story. That's what I love. And
comedians that take you somewhere really uncomfortable and you're not really sure where you're going, and then they get that
I
think
don't love
it's
to be uncomfortable.
You don't love to be
I don't
uncomfortable.
love that.
I think it's Sarah Silverman. I like she kind of goes.
I do love her, and she's
Yeah.
amazing, and I think she does that a little bit less than she
Yeah.
used to. I think our world has gotten so uncomfortable, especially.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I just love a straight up story.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, but I also love somebody who. I mean, Sarah is so practiced and such a a mistress of her craft, and she also, I love about Sarah that her journey is unfolding. She's softer than she used to be. She is, her spirit is larger than, you see that. And Maria Bamford was on the show on Sunday, and I just, the level of her excellence she's doing all new stuff, UnCabaret is great for that, and I really encourage process, and it's about that, but the level of her craft at just trying something, and the level of her spirit is so high, and her love for her, both with Sarah, Maria, with everybody that I love, really, their love for the work is palpable.
Is there pressure? So what was coming up for me when you're sharing this, like, you watch like musicians or actors that get typecast, or musicians that sort of recreate an identity. Like you think of Madonna. What is it like with comedians? Are they encouraged for the most part to do more new material and try new things, or stay with that one thing that's always getting that laugh? Is there some stigmatism?
It's the hardest for comedians because you can't laugh at the same thing more than once. So comedians there's a level, okay, you're building material and you tour and you tour and you can tour that material and you can, finesse that material and grow that material, but then you either do a Netflix special or it dries up. Material dries up in a different way than that's an icky way to say it, but in a different way than a song will dry up. You can go back to songs and reinterpret, and you can do that with some pieces of material, and there are certain stories that grow and change. There are two answers to this, and so it often burns up. And so if you're working at a certain level, you've done your Netflix special, an audience will have laughed at it, and they won't want to see it again for the most part.
And it's got current stuff in it too.
And the currency. But on the other hand, there are stories that are sort of the stories of your life that will grow and evolve and change as you do. And it's just like looking at things from a slightly different angle. And if it's a big enough story, and you can sort of make a story. Taylor Negron, who was just one of the greatest and a big part of UnCabaret, and people have seen
She was in my mind when you were saying
Taylor Negron.
I was thinking of Tig.
Oh, Tig Negron.
Yeah,
no, that's a whole different person.
Yeah.
Same initials. Taylor's gone now, but he had a story that was called The Monkey Story, and it was about being a child and wanting a monkey and getting a monkey and the misadventures of that. And he told it over a period of maybe 10, 12 years.
Wow.
And that story kept changing and kept changing. And when he got close to transitioning, he was still telling that story. And the last time I heard him tell the story, he was still performing, but, he knew he was, his health wasn't great. And he made a point in that story where he looked in the monkey's eyes and the monkey looked in his eyes, and he knew unconditional love for the first time, and it gave me chills.
Wow.
He had never said that before in the story, and it probably wasn't true. It didn't happen in the story.
Yeah.
But what he's now, but a great story is almost like a vessel that you can keep pouring into. But you don't have that many of those in your most material. That will not be true for most material. And the UnCabaret audience is super sophisticated. If you're listening and you consider yourself a super sophisticated, smart, and adventurous person, come see us because we're for you. And when we started comedy, a lot of people who were like comedy writers and stuff would come, because comedy writers can just jump ahead. If you're watching like very standard stuff, it's like, oh, I see where that's going. Oh, I see where that's going. It's so boring, I, as an audience person, love drawing more than painting. I love to see the mind at work, and UnCabaret is almost like watching people's drawing, which I just
the journey,
and it's a little rawer usually. But not always. We have a very varied palette, but there's room in what we are for people to be adventurous.
Yeah.
That's not on a Saturday night at a comedy club. That's not going to be true,
Right.
because you know the laugh meter's running and it just feels different. The context creates such a, whatever the context is, that will change your experience of the material. Yeah.
So this, doing this.
Too bad I have nothing to say.
I know. God, it's so hard to get you talking. And this is without coffee. I'm kind of glad we didn't have coffee. I'm just kidding. Well, so this idea of doing something for 25 years, even though you've had breaks, like still coming back to it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, me doing this show, I think this is like the 42nd or 43rd,
Year.
show. And it's just episode. It's just 1 year. It's not even, it's a big deal. Like to keep, I was relating to some of the things you were saying about like, I don't know if this is going to work out. And a comedian got booked on something else, and I've got to replace them, like that last minute shift and stuff. It's like, what the hell am I doing? It's kind of like, there's that extra anxiety. So you're kind of my hero for keeping this going for 25 years. What else keeps you in it? Really like, what's that moment after the show where you're like, yeah, I did that again? Or
That's that feeling of just people leaving and being so happy.
Mm-hmm.
I love being around. I mean, I love making a show where the performers are the performers I love and I get to see. I love the actual part of it that's my own performing.
Mm-hmm.
Just that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, then the business part of it, keeping it going, growing it as a business, having a business be a piece of art. How can you make a business be of service in the world, and how can you... when we came back this time, I really was like, this was the first alternative comedy show.
Mm-hmm. And
since then, alternative comedy has certainly grown, and we did, we were certainly a major player in that revolution, if you will. And I went around to say, I was like, it's not needed. If it's needed, fine, but I don't think it is.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
I couldn't see it anywhere. And that was part of what kept me going. And what I couldn't see is, number one, the adventurous. There were plenty of shows where people were more casual, where it was sort of more alt-type people doing it, but kind of...
What do you mean by alt-type?
Not the guy in the suit, not the mom, just more alt-type.
Like just character.
Alternative,
like,
more alternative. No, just like people who might have a more alternative... I don't know.
Like they're like a niche, or maybe
niche.
Okay.
They're not like living in a house in the suburbs with their two kids necessarily, and a little more maybe rock and roll, maybe a little more geeky. There's a lot of different kinds of alt. Yeah.
It's like describe all the genres of music. Like it's kind of like that. Yeah.
I mean, when we started, we were very aligned. I mean, UnCabaret started at the same time as Def Comedy Jam, and they were sort of
that's right. They just had their
and so they were really part of a revolution in music, and we were as well because we were really part of the garage band Nirvana whole. I mean, that was a big part of the feeling of where we were.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, everybody wasn't wearing flannel. I was wearing a lot of glitter, and but people were wearing different shit. But it wasn't. But it was part of a different aesthetic than you were feeling at a comedy club, which at that time was. It's different now. I mean, comedy clubs are filled with all different kinds of people, but at that time it was more rigid, and so, but still. The issue of women being a women-run, women-owned business, and having a lot of women on the show, but having it not be a woman's show.
I was just going to say, do you are you sensitive to the female when someone's like, "Oh, you're a female comedian"? Like,
I'm just always glad if somebody thinks I'm a comedian. No, I don't know. I'm sensitive about everything. I'm sensitive about the fact there was no coffee. I'm a sensitive person.
She's never going to let me.
Super sensitive.
One day you're going to open your front door and there's
like
just going to be a mound of coffee.
It's funny. I'm just teasing.
You'll never know where it came from.
That's the thing about a comedian. If there's a thing, they just keep going back. Because comedy comes from, I'm going back to the women's thing, but comedy comes from... if I'm helping somebody find it, I look for where is the if you would say on the earth, where's the fault line?
Yeah.
You're looking for the fault
Yeah.
line. That's where the earthquake will happen. And the
Yeah.
earthquake is the laugh.
Yeah.
So you're looking for jealousy, rage, pain, envy, any kind of discomfort,
The trigger.
you're looking for that stuff. That's
Yeah.
what the comedy is. So as a comedian, you have to be willing to keep going there, and it's exhausting, I mean, everything's not that. Sometimes a little funny thing will come, a little funny story, and it's fine, but and then there's different techniques. But so the thing about the woman, sure, I'm very sensitive about it, but there's also an LGBTQ element that is a little bit in the mainstream, but we're more I think ethnically, the comedy world is more mixed now, and it was very divided 25 years ago. So, more different kinds of people, women and LGBTQA especially for us is important.
Definitely. We've kind of already talked about this, but is there anything else we can say about just, why laughter and comedy is needed, especially now when there is a lot of uncertainty and the rapid pace of what tragedy seems to be happening? Like, do you feel more aligned to do your show when you hear these things that are just heartbreaking?
No, I just want to crawl up when I hear heartbreaking things. I don't feel more. But yeah, I mean, yes, of course. I mean, there's at the beginning when we started, I had a little motto that was and good entertainment for a nasty world. Because when we started, at that very beginning, but when we started at Luna Park, when it really took off, let's say that. I mean, there were some, as I said, some shows, but when it really launched was in '92 when Clinton was elected. And we were shifting from a time of them and us. A lot of comedians, very liberal, environment. So there's a lot of them, us, a lot of blame. So now here we are, quote unquote, we are in the White House. And now we need to be self-reflective. So, that is an important journey. And that's one of the reasons it really took off. And now, it's just... There's a lot of pressure that needs to be released. It's like there really is a pressure valve thing. And of course we all need to laugh. There's so much to talk about. Sometimes there's, on the worst weeks, very little said about it. It's just understood in the room. I mean, you just give a nod to it, the ongoing activities. Maybe in a night, a great night to me is like one person is super pointed. Some people are generally referencing, maybe one person is absolutely saying nothing. So you get a sense of all the different attitudes, and you need all those attitudes in your back pocket to get through it now.
I agree with that.
And now I should say, UnCabaret more than comedy, because it's really about, not just that we added the music in this iteration, which is an important part of it, I think part of the soul, expansion of it, but also that it's spirit raising.
Is there when we're talking about comedy, we have to talk about the line, the infamous line. What's your thoughts on like is there a line that you can't cross or a comedian shouldn't cross? Is there a situation where you're like, there's
a million things that I would never say that I really don't even want to, the thought is like over there and you're like, I'm not going to think it, and then it sort of fades away and maybe you don't even think I'm going to think it. Everybody has a different line. Everybody is different. This is the beauty of comedy. It's a celebration of individual expression of the grand spirit. In great comedy is a very full expression of your unique self. And that's what separates a great comedian from a good, decent, and okay. And that's what I'm always looking for. I mean, there are people who make me laugh that I'd never put on UnCab because they're just, I don't know who they are really. But they're skilled. And so everyone, I mean, there are things that comedians do that I like that I couldn't do in a million years. There are things that I do that I'm sure other comedians like that are like, oh, I could never do that thing. So, there are people who can talk, filthy, like sexy, filthy line. And that many others who can't. There are people who can talk shit about their family, like they could say the worst thing about their family, and everybody's on board, and they're like, "Oh my God, your mother's so horrible." And other comedians are horrified, like I could never say one bad thing about my mother on stage.
Yeah,
it's really, and politics, the same thing. I tend to not want to divide people, and also as host, for me, and that job is a little bit different than any other job.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier about just storytelling. You like a good story. So if there's context, if like a comedian is sharing like the context of like who they are, maybe even sneaking in a little bit of their values and beliefs, so you kind of know who
not
they
even sneaking in. That's a big part of great comedy. What do you believe in? Who are you? Like bawled out. Like just say it.
It's apparent.
Yeah.
Then they can't. Then the line is there's a less of an issue of the line because it's like I know this person, like I feel connected to this person.
Yeah,
I can laugh at them if it's uncomfortable.
It's very challenging now. I mean, there's some well-known examples that have been in the media that we don't need to run through, and comedians are trying. It's a challenging time because things are moving very fast. That's one of the things. Everything's moving fast. So the response time, whereas, I don't know, maybe even 10 years ago, something would happen. Maybe you'd take a day to think about it. I mean, when we started UnCabaret, there was no social media. I mean, when you think about it, none. There was a web, and there was, but people would say things in the room that they would never say now. People said things on stage that they would never.
There was no recording. Nobody, I got it.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no recording. People named names. People told me about meetings they were in. People, Hollywood deals that went bad. People said everything. Yeah. Because it was a secret room. Yeah. But now, it's just the fear of being recorded and put out. Yeah. People are, or even if it's not recorded.
God forbid, clipping into it too, so you don't get the contact.
Yes. Or even just reporting on it. I was in the room. I mean, even if somebody doesn't do that, and they're like, "Oh my God, I was out on Cabaret, and like this one said that," or whatever show, and it's just so it's scary for. And then on the other hand, the sort of good side of that is there was a bit in the past of like stuff that's on social media now that's like movie reviews and TV reviews and what you thought of this. People just put that stuff on social media now. Don't bother with it on stage mostly.
Yeah. True.
So that's good.
All right. Well, one more question, I think, before we switch gears and do some other stuff that may be fun. This little box of off-topic questions could be surprisingly silly, but we'll see what happens. Sometimes it stays on point. It's magical. Okay. It stays on point. It goes off topic. Who knows?
Sure, like the angel cards.
Yes, exactly. So I have to ask because I have to close the interview with
what you have to ask.
I have to ask. Like,
what does she have to ask?
I have to do this. Like, what's made you laugh? What's the best joke you've heard?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Nothing
comes up. The best joke I've ever heard. It's hard to ever repeat other people's material, but I will say the one joke, and I'm not a big fan of jokes, but I do often think of Stephen Wright saying, "It's a small world, but I wouldn't want to have to paint it." It's funny.
It's cute.
See, surprising.
That's
cute. Yeah. I mean, you can't really tell a joke.
Yeah. Well, content. I mean, we kind of already talked about it. It's like you need that story and the richness.
I mean, what I just said, I encourage you to come to UnCabaret Live on Sundays, Amazon. I mean, there's many great stories. And, check us out.
All right. We're going to come back to that because I'm going to let you plug your show and tell people how to find it. Yeah, I mean, come on. That's the least I can do without like pumping you up with coffee, right? All right. So, box or book? Would you like a question for the box or the book?
The box and the book.
You want box and the book? All right, fine. We'll do both. We'll do both.
So greedy.
You're so greedy. Okay. So the reason I do this is just to illustrate at any given time how we're relating can change. And to also point out that there's always more information in the room. Like we know a lot about what you do,
sure,
and your show. But what else can we learn about you?
There's so much.
Yeah, there's so much. So let's see. I feel like I have to read this. Like in a war between superheroes, who would win?
Which superheroes?
I don't know. You're supposed to tell me.
In a war between which superheroes?
Well, you're supposed to tell me. Like
in a war between
superheroes. Of all the superheroes you know, which one would win?
Spider-Man? Because he's a spider.
Because he has the web.
He's got the web. I once had a piece of art.
He looks great in tights.
Yeah, I guess. Or Wonder Woman because she's a woman. Let's pick a different one.
All right, let's pick a different one.
That seems so random.
Well, they're all like that. All right. This is stupid. There's only two. The question was, how many people in this room could you beat at arm wrestling? And there's only two of us.
All right. We might go to the book after.
We
this
might
third
have
one's
to go to the
not
book.
better.
Oh, this is fun.
Okay.
What email do you most regret sending?
I don't have an email I regret sending.
Have you ever group send something and no?
I think, I send out, get on our email list. It's really good. I write something every Tuesday and Friday. Maybe there was a
a typo?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have one.
All right, let's go.
I'm
Let's
kind
go with
of
the book.
rigorous about that, though. Now that I've said that, I can guarantee you there'll be an email I regret sending tomorrow.
Maybe not tomorrow, but if it happens, let me know.
Okay.
All right, just tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Okay. Oh. Would you be willing to give up sex for 5 years if you could have one wonderful erotic dream every night? That's a fun question.
Sure.
Sure. I got to read it again. I'm kind of wondering what my own answer would be. Would you be willing to give up sex for 5 years?
But you're not giving up sex. You're just giving up the physical manifestation. You're giving your sex life is maybe amazing if you're having one amazing sex dream every night.
Yeah. I guess, yeah. So you're going with frequency over normal sex life that probably people are not having sex every night.
One costs less.
One costs less. In so many ways. In so many ways. I like that. I like the book.
That's a very cost-conscious answer.
Yeah, it is. Optimization. It's the theme today. That's my theme today. All right. So thanks for that. So one more thing that I like to do on the show is what we call heart swell.
Oh.
Heart swell. So we're going to change the mood again.
All right.
If I could sing, I would, but I can't. And you wouldn't want me to. So what heart swell is just thinking of somebody that just really deserves like a tribute or just some kind words, someone that's meant something to you, and you just want to give them a shout out and say, hey, you mean this to me, you've done this, you mean this to me because whatever. But just like sharing some deep feelings about a person, or it could be a group of people if you like, and letting them hear you say that. So it's kind of like looking at the camera.
Well, let's just say, I mean, there's so many, but because we met at City Yoga, that was our connection.
Yeah.
That comes to mind.
Yeah.
City Yoga was an amazing studio, and I healed yoga injuries there, and Anthony, and so many great teachers, really, and it was really a place.
Megan's been on the show.
Okay.
For creative writing.
That was a space that, and I would say, when I say that was a space that was amazing, and also the people that people who run spaces. I mean, I think in some ways of myself that way, but in order to even do the work, OLOC had to exist and Luna Park had to exist, and, so City Yoga has to exist. The context, there's a beautiful... David Byrne wrote a beautiful intro to the CBGB book about that space and how that space was so critical, really, for the music. And I don't think that maybe a general population understands how important, the designers of this beautiful room we're in, and Jean-Pierre, who created Luna Park and ran Luna Park, and before that Largo, and Anthony and Rebecca, who created that City Yoga space. People who, in this world that is so hostile, really can be so hostile. People who create. And my journey, I had a bit of a hejira, and where I was uprooted, and people kept creating safe spaces for me. And, that beautiful thing where, from the beginning when, you're my parents, to create a home, and you creating the space, and I teased you about the coffee, but it's a beautiful space. You created a beautiful, space. So everyone who's out there, if you're listening and you're creating a space for other people, and if you've, been really a receiver of people's creative efforts to make space, because that's really, here we are on Earth. To thank God for making this space on Earth. That's the basic, gratitude. All the spiritual centers, CSLs and the agapes, and everybody who's creating sacred space as we move through the world. Sometimes it's just like a person on a corner, like a traffic person, who's like creating a safe space around that, to where we. I mean, just to really say this, you know, you said before the show, I wanted to do something more lighthearted in light of the world. And, you know, we're taping this right after the Vegas thing. And you know, we are living at a time when spaces don't seem safe.
Yeah.
You know, and so at the very core is, you know, I create a safe space here in my heart.
Yeah.
You know, I create a house of light and therein dwell.
Yeah.
And, you know, to go through life like that. And a relationship, you know, this is about relationships. Where relationships work, it's because you're, you know, we're coming together and we're creating a space that these two people, you know, create a space other people feel better in.
Yeah.
That's a great relationship. To me, when you say, what's a great relationship? Well, I'm in a relationship with somebody who, when other people come into it, they feel better.
Yeah.
That's my heart swell.
No, it was a great one. I know it was a great one because I got goosebumps. And I don't know if you knew this, but while I was at City Yoga, so it was right after I moved from Dallas, Texas, and I had gone through a breakup. And obviously, you know, I have a marketing degree. You know, I wasn't. I had a career in advertising, but I took a break to manage that studio because it felt like a safe space for me. And I agree with you about the provider of a great space, because you being here is a testament to that in a safe space there is community.
Yeah.
And I could reach out to you and we haven't talked for years. Yeah. You're like, yeah, I'll come on your show. You know, like that community is so important. And when I reflect on these like mass shootings and things, there's always a element of someone falling into isolation and not having a community, so
Absolutely.
You just cannot take it for granted.
No,
you know.
that's exactly it. The isolation and alienation, which is so easy. I mean, I think of how much work I've done to create this in my life, and there's a day where none of it's there, and I can absolutely fall into despair. Yeah, you know. Yeah.
So yes, I love that. Well, tell everybody where they can find you and find out about the show.
Well, when you're not watching me here, you can find me first of all online. That's your first stop, and Beth Lapides, BethlaPides.com, and on all social media, and then in the real world, and also go to the website and sign up for the email list, UnCabaret.com.
There you go.
UnCabaret.com. And again, in social media, there's that. And then, get on the email list. I do write, substantially on Tuesdays and Fridays.
You sold me.
About the world, and usually a take that people seem to enjoy. And then Sunday nights, we're at a venue called OLAC, AULAC, which is across from Disney Hall in downtown LA. It's a beautiful, incredible room, and it's a vegan restaurant with a chef who's really a special person, and it is a space that you should explore, even not on a Sunday night. Nice. And then, you can also find me doing UnCabaret. We're on Amazon. Those episodes are up there for your fun. And I think that's enough places to find me for now.
That's enough places. And, of course, I always do an archive of the show, and I'll share all of those links. So if you can't remember all that and you're, not
and if you're listening, my podcast, Life and Beth on iTunes.
Life and Beth. See, we'll put that in. I'm glad I didn't know about that.
Yeah,
so
I forgot to say that. We're on hiatus.
We'll put that in the link. Yeah. So I'll share all that in the archive so everybody can find Beth. Really enjoyed this.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
so great.
Great show.
Yeah,
fun. Last thing that I always do is issue a social challenge, and I try to sometimes just wait for something to come out in the interview that inspires me. And I like, in those like uncomfortable moments where you're like in an elevator and nobody's talking, or like looking down at their phone, or like standing in line, and finding a way to just connect with people. So like ask somebody next time you're in an elevator, what made you laugh this week? Like, just see what happens. Like, or be willing to share.
Or
try
to make them laugh.
Or try to make them laugh.
By just saying something really embarrassing about yourself, or noticing something. One thing that will make people laugh, like in an elevator, is noticing how uncomfortable it is and saying it, or noticing something. I mean, really speaking to the moment is where the greatest comedy comes from.
Takes a little bravery, but vulnerability is strength, my friends.
Yes.
So just go for it. All right. That is our social challenge. So have laughter in the elevator. Next show will be a surprise because you'll relate to this in the scheduling of things. I don't know what the next show is going to be, but it will be a good one, I assure you. And in the meantime, as I always say, just go out in the world and relate with more curiosity. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
You're listening to Relatable with Stephanie Michelle, only on LA Talk Radio.